Hello, and this is Bernie Burns, and joining me on the couch here is Mr. Matt Hullum.
I'm squeezing in here as close as it can get. Feels good.
And we are doing the commentary for the Red vs. Blue Xbox Live miniseries, Red vs. Blue Recovery 1.
Recovery 1.
Burn myself. And see, we started there on the opening shot of the red and blue dead soldiers. Now, this was the very first thing that we produced since Red vs. Blue ended with Season 5. Yeah. The main Gulch Chronicles ended.
And there was a bit of discussion about whether to begin with that at all, because there was another scene that was written that was a little more action-based scene that we thought would give a good tempo feeling to the start of the series, which was really a good scene, but it didn't have that kind of didn't set the tone.
Yeah, I really liked it too. I thought it was, I remember saying, it would be great to start with the red and the blue soldiers, because it's like a red and blue thing, but they're dead, so it's like very clear this is not going to be like Red versus Blue. It's not going to be, a guy standing around yakking about guns and, how much the other guys suck.
Yeah. And then found a way to tie it into the end of Out of Mind, which made sense, so it just kind of came together.
Yeah, it was good because we wanted to do something that kind of led into some other things we're working on, but then bridged into the Red versus Blue universe, and what better way to do that with a miniseries than to pick up, the freelancer story where it ended with Out of Mind, but, we already know the audience is already kind of ahead of these characters a little bit at the start of what's going on, because they've seen the Red versus Blue Blood Gulch Chronicles through to its finale, but now they're getting some filler material.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun and interesting way to start, because really in this scene, I think the person that you, or the character that you identify most with is actually Delta.
Yeah.
Because you know his story better than anybody else's here. You don't know Wash. You don't know anything about him at this point. Who he is, what he's all about, or even what his objective is. But Delta, you've seen him go through some different things, and now you're picking back up with him, even though he's somewhat devoid of personality in the strictest sense. He's definitely, I think, the person you empathize most with in this scene.
Well, he's our bridge, too, because this, it's the first episode of what we know is going to be a miniseries. So we have to set up, what's going to take place in the miniseries, the little devices that we're going to use, and elements to the story, like the shot at the beginning that always has the dead characters in it. But then this of what he's doing, what his job is, what is Recovery 1, who are these recovery agents?
You sound fantastic, by the way.
I know, dude. We always do a commentary when I'm feeling hoarse. I don't know why.
Great. Thanks for telling me.
And, of course, here's where we get the indication that this takes place before episode 100 of Red vs. Blue, because we have Wyoming here.
Right.
And this is what happens to Wyoming between Out of Mind and when he shows back up in Season 5. And we talked about this. You shot the last half of this.
Right.
And we talked about, we want to make sure he had a Banshee that he flies away on here.
Right.
Because he has a Banshee when he shows up at Season 5.
Yeah, and it was one of those late night things, and finishing it out and just didn't do it.
Yeah, and the funny thing was
that was the whole thing.
I know.
Going to resolve.
And I gave Matt a bunch of grief about it. I'm like, well, you didn't put it in there. You didn't put the Banshee in. I go, you just go and set a setting and get a Banshee. Damn. And he's like, it was just we ran out of time and we had to make it and get it out there. And I was like, yeah. Then we found out you can't even have a Banshee.
You can't even do it. Yeah. We thought for this DVD maybe we'd go back and I'd fix that mistake. I felt so bad about it, all the grief I've gotten from Bernie, but not even possible.
I didn't even know that. And now here in episode 2, we follow the same pattern that we wanted to establish, where we start with our shot of the dead body here. You don't know who it is. We have the intro, and then we reveal who the actual dead body belongs to in the first scene of the episode.
And that last shot I really like, and part of the fun of making these little mini-series like this and Out of Mind is that we do get to spend a little bit more time crafting individual shots and do a little bit more stylistic stuff than we would normally do in Red vs. Blue, and it's more appropriate, I think, because it's not, it's not a comedy, and you don't.
It's not intended to be humorous, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to distract from the comedy with over stylized, cinematography and stuff like that. But it is nice every once in a while to get in there because there's so much cool stuff to look at. Here we're working in Halo 2, and Halo 3 is out now, of course, but there's still it's such a cool game, it's so much fun to play around with and discover different spaces in there.
Yeah, and from a writing perspective, it's fun to also just have these tributaries that you have where we set up some rules like text to set up the character of text. We set up this whole freelancer program and set up the rules where they all have an AI and they're all named after a state. And you think, well, I wonder what North and South Dakota would be like. You know what I mean?
Who would they be?
And what would be things? So we set up this thing where they're twins.
Although we have to change North Dakota's name apparently to just Dakota.
Yeah, they're getting uppity in North Dakota. They just want to be called Dakota. But and then it's so funny when all we have to work with visually for character design is colors. Do you remember how much time we spent with North and South and their colors?
Oh, a ton of time and tests and recording and
Washington
in this lighting environment. How are they gonna look? And this one and comparing them to Doc and doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. I remember we brought them in, we bring in everyone individually, we wouldn't let them talk to each other so we wouldn't, compromise the integrity of our survey. And we'd pull up a violet character and a purple character and go, okay, here's Violet, here's purple. Which one looks like a girl? Which one looks like a guy?
Which one? Who feels like North to you? Who feels Southy?
And so we determined the darker character seemed more male, and so we did that. But then, in keeping with the twins are always kind of dressed alike, we had the same kind of secondary color on them. And this is fun. We never used the shot where we used both sides of Sanctuary to indicate the passage of time, which we had set up here. Where one is desolate and one is, all the water running in the background there. But that was a big choice, too. What part of Sanctuary here do we use? That's the map in Halo 2 that we're using. And then, when we designed Washington, when we designed Washington, we spent so much time worrying that people would mistake him for text, but the yellow...
Like you just did?
Yeah, like I just did. The yellow really stands out. I kind of like the color scheme of Washington, because it reminds me of the Rocket Warthog that's only in Halo PC, and I always like that, how it's dark with the yellow pinstriping.
Yeah, and I think also the yellow stripe in Halo and just in the real world too is usually indicative of a warning, and you see Wash, and immediately you see that yellow, and you feel like warning, something's going to happen, something's going on. And he's kind of got that edge as a character, and I think it's reflected in his color scheme.
Yeah. And then we had some really great actors and actresses in this, and we just heard Command. We now have all three of the main characters, Command and South and Wash. So we should definitely talk about that a little bit.
Join us in the next episode.
And then for our opening here, we start with, of course, the two dead bodies, and the twist on this is who the dead bodies are, but this time it's not what you think. The bodies really aren't dead.
And that was a conscious theme as well for the entire series.
Yeah, we opened everyone pretty much the same way. Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the actors that we got, because we found some really great actors for Recovery 1. First of all, Wash here is played by a fellow by the name of Shannon McCormick. And we'd never worked with him before, and he came in and read for Wash, and he had just such a strong voice that it was really great to the way he could step in and just kind of pick everything up. Sometimes we take for granted when we have them say certain lines, they make sense to us, and we know they'll make sense to the audience, but an actor's what the heck, an AI? What is all this?
You got to bridge that gap, and there's in this series in particular, there's so much that's kind of unsaid, just a lot of military jargon and technical talk, and they're talking about AI and kind of almost inside jokes or inside references just to these characters in their own world. And
we're relying on people who are totally unfamiliar with the series to convey that.
And unfamiliar in the sense that not just Recovery 1 out of mind type stuff, but the people that we brought in for this had never seen any Red versus Blue.
Yeah.
So
and then the Delta AI who just appeared and disappeared there, that is played by Mark Bellman. He was of course, the same actor who played Delta in the Out of Mind series. South is played by Shanna Merlin, and then the voice that you're hearing is for Command is another actress by the name of Lee Eddy. They both did a great job. We went through a lot of different stuff with Lee for the voice of Command, and we settled on telephone operator at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday.
Yeah, she did a lot of different interesting options. And at one point, I think the telephone operator was in India.
Yeah,
but that didn't work out very well, so we changed that.
Yeah, the freelancer department outsourced all their customer service.
That's right. But it was a lot of fun to work with some new different actors. And, Wyoming appears in the first episode but doesn't actually speak. And I think other than Mark Bellman playing Delta, no one in this series has ever appeared in anything else. There's nobody else in it. So it's all new actors, and I think it really gives it a fresh, a fresh feeling.
Yeah, our recurring character in this series has never been in Red vs. Blue before, in the proper series. Delta.
Delta. So. Yeah.
And we also, you'll see here now, we went through just about every map we hadn't used at Halo in Halo at this point.
Yeah.
I think for episode 4 we actually went back to Sidewinder for a little bit.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. We
on-
did.
in
Yeah,
Halo
very
1.
briefly. Yeah.
But I think we felt obligated to use up the remaining sets we hadn't used in Halo 2.
And there's so many things in Halo 2 sets that we'd wanted to shoot in, and just like and grand kind of plans
Yeah.
that we'd had for shooting them, and it's just like, time, storyline, conspires against you that you don't get to those places. But it is fun again, to be able to step outside, do something a little bit different, and kind of make use of some of those things because
Yeah.
they're really fun to look at.
Well, to integrate any new element into something that's 100 episodes long, it's a lot bigger decision to do. Whereas a miniseries, we
Right.
can just totally write to whatever we've got, And this thing where they're going from place to place, recovering these agents who have died or are dying. You can set up any kind of scenario that you really want, so it's nice. It keeps it moving. I like it a lot. Then this, where Wash is leading them away from whatever's hunting these freelancers. It's really just he sets up this trap in this area where he thinks he can actually stand against this thing. And this is where Wash is starting to get a little bit ahead of us now as the audience, where he knows this thing is hunting them. He's starting to piece some things together about what this thing is trying to do, and now has actions that the audience is now learning from him. And Delta's nice. Delta's kind of the guy that we can always step in and remind us of the rules, or tell us another rule as to what can be done and what can't be done by these people.
Yeah. And looking at this and looking at Deltas in this episode quite a bit, I'm remembering what a challenge it was to recreate him both visually and audibly, as we hear his last line there, to match what we did in Out of Mind.
Yeah. And now we open with the dead body in the last episode is not really a body at all, but it's the representation of the Epsilon AI. That this was another fun thing from the writing perspective, that we could go through and think of different ways that they would try to implement these AI into these soldiers. And here's one where the AI and the soldier, for whatever reason, were totally incompatible, and it caused some kind of mental breakdown in Washington and some kind of mental breakdown in the AI as well. And what happened there. And that's kind of a fun concept, that, to be attacking something or fighting something that's inside your own head.
Yeah.
And, it's just nice with the whole freelancer program is to go through and think, like, all the possible different scenarios. Like, even with South, something goes wrong and she doesn't get an AI, and how does she feel about that? Even though people have been, tortured and killed by these things, and, it's been a horrible experience for just about everybody, it's still something she was looking forward to, and it didn't happen for her. Yeah. Why don't you talk about, like, some of the shots in here that
this was a cool scene. And Nathan did a lot of work in this scene with the visual effects stuff. And we see here we turn this kind of faux monitor that's in
Foundation.
It's in Foundation Halo 2 into a mirror. And you don't really know, is it just a mirror? Is there somebody behind there? There's obviously somebody watching him from another perspective in a room somewhere else. And if you remember, it's also a room where in Out of Mind, there was a bit of an action sequence with some different
it was Tex
different freelancers having a big battle, and Tex making her breakout essentially. Yep. So it calls into question, what exactly is this room that they go into? What is the purpose of it? Is it just an interrogation room? Is it something else? Is there some kind of like mind games going on here? And what caused Tex, when you see an interrogation happening here, that's more of a deliberate process, what caused Tex earlier to go crazy in that room?
Right. And it's one of the interesting things about using games too, is as we come back to the freelancer program, we've set up that Foundation is, they're one of their initial training grounds. At least parts of it are parts of the training ground. And so if we come back to this freelancer, like flashbacks, do we come back to Halo 2, or do we try to set up something similar in Halo 3? So, things to think about. There's a Banshee.
There's a Banshee. You can get one on this level. No problem.
And here's where we still haven't seen whatever it is that's hunting them. We have no indication really what it is yet. We just know it's something that's attacking freelancers, or finding dying freelancers and somehow taking their equipment and capturing their AI as well.
Yeah.
Which actually makes every freelancer is a target. But even in the case of Wash now that he and South have Delta, they're even more of a target now because they have an AI. Wash was considered a perfect character to do recovery because there was never any danger that he would take any of the AI because he wanted nothing to do with them.
Right.
And we thought, what would be a motivation for a character that wouldn't want a really powerful advantage, like having your own AI and, having some kind of history with one was the best way to do it.
Come in command. Hello, Recovery 2. What is
And also on character design there too for that character, that villain character. Very, very careful about what's shown, what's not shown, what it looks like.
Yeah, and at what stage in this miniseries that we showed him for the first time.
Right, and without giving away too much, what stage of he is too.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
So it's there's a lot to that character. In fact, we could say that Recovery 1 has been a way to bridge between Red vs. Blue and some other things, but more importantly, it's a way to set up the background for a very important character to come.
I think that probably that's as much as we'll say about that.
So, you know we have other agents. We will find you, Sal. Now you weren't worried.
And thanks for watching.
Yeah, I hope you liked it. We hope to do more stuff like this, as we have the opportunity to, do little miniseries and fill in the gaps. We have a lot of fun doing it. Hope you have fun watching it.